Well, I feel like I'm confident. Like I want to inspire others that just because someone said you can't do something or you're not capable of doing something, there are ways. If you want to become an astronaut, for example, it might take you longer to get there, but do it. If you feel something in your heart and you want to go for it, just go for it. Don't let others stop you. And there might, for example, you may want to be in space. There might be other ways to be in space besides being an astronaut, and I'm just using that as an example, not being literal here. So, but just follow your dreams, follow your heart. And, it took me 8 years to write a book. It may not take you 8 years to write a book, but keep at it, and believe in yourself is what I say. Follow your heart, believe in yourself.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a great guest on the show from the other side of the world. It's my summer. It's her winter, but she's here with us, and I'm so excited to have Danielle on the podcast. We're going to learn about her journey, her story, and how she took grief and turned that into a book. Danielle, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you on Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you so much, David. It's lovely to be here.
It's great. We met each other and we've had a conversation already, so I feel like we're good friends already. But for those that have meeting you for the first time, Danielle, tell everybody where you are joining us from today.
I'm from Sydney, Australia, and right now it's winter here, and it's about 7:30 in the morning for me, and it's probably evening for
Yeah,
David.
It's about 5:30 at night for me, and it's tomorrow, right, for you.
They say that we live in the future. The Americans and Canadians say we live in the future because it's the day before for you guys.
So you can tell us what the lottery numbers are, what our winning sports team scores will be. You know everything because it's tomorrow for you.
Oh, that'll be nice.
That'd be great.
The lottery. The lottery. That would be fun.
And I'm joining you from the history side of it. So I can tell you what happened yesterday. You can tell me what happens tomorrow.
Right.
I like this. This is a great combination. I like this. It's great. So Danielle, you have a very interesting reason why you started as an author. And I want to jump right in because I think people would love to hear the story of how you became an author and why you started writing. Can you talk a little bit about the situations and the circumstances around what made you become an author? Like there's a story there. Can we talk about that?
We can talk about that, David. I had a dog called Teida, and initially I had phobias of dogs. I was bullied at school, suffered anxiety at school. Now we can come back to all that later. But to go in on the cuts of how I became an author, I actually couldn't write anything at school, and I just decided to write a book. I just decided to write a book about the bond my dog had and the bond my dog, a friend of mine who passed away, had, and me. So there was three main characters in the book. The main character in the book we're talking about is called George, just for a namesake. And so when, and I'll say this part in the book because George did pass away, and it's okay to say that. When he passed away, I didn't know what to do, and I was in a dark state because he was my first close friend that passed away. I had my grandmother passed away, and I knew of her, but I didn't actually know her as a person and had this great bond with her, like, George and other people going forward. And I just thought, well, I had my dog Teida, and she suffered grief too, so animals suffer grief like we did.
Yeah.
And Teida knew that George was going, and her last visit, George came over, and he sat on his favourite lounge, and Teida just walked around him, and she walked really slow like he did. And she knew that time was her last visit that he came. And basically 10 days later, he passed away. And through that, I used it as a healing process to write the story of the bond that George had, the bond that Teida had with George, the bond that Teida had with me. But it's from Teida's point of view, a dog's view, not from my view. Mm. It actually took me 8 years to write. And I thought, well,
wow, I know. 8 years.
I didn't think 8 years. I didn't know how to write a book. There was a course called Write Your Book in a Weekend. I decided to attend the course thinking, I could write a book in a weekend. Gee, that would be so much fun, And I had this piece of paper with about 10,000 words written, and or a script with about 10,000 words. Then the teacher looked at me and said, well, you've done everything all about face, all upside down. You need to describe, not tell. You need to name your chapters first. You need to have a title. I had no idea on this. I had no idea how to do anything. I just did scribble things on paper thinking I was right. You know? And then after back and forward, I stayed in contact with the teacher. She gave me more feedback.
Nice.
And then I had this manuscript, there was a big wad of paper with a big manuscript, and I needed someone outside to look at it. And I didn't know who to turn to. I had a friend, and this person and I are still really good, close friends today. And I had a friend who was doing writing as part of their work. And I said, look, I've got this, I'm writing a book, can you look at it? And he goes, I'll look at it. I said, but it's a really big, big wad of paper. It's so much. And he goes, I'll read it for you. And I'll critique it, though. And I said, that's what I need. I need someone to critique it, because I was at a point where is it something just in my head that I'm writing and no one's going to like it? Yeah. Or has it got some future to it? And he looked at it and he scribbled through the red pen and he made changes and he noticed my tenses were out. He noticed I repeated myself. He noticed there was bits that he couldn't understand and all it needed was just one sentence here or there. And I thought, but one thing he said to me, he said, this has potential. You are a good writer. Keep writing. And I thought, oh, okay, I can do something. So I kept writing. And I took into consideration all these scribbles and all these suggestions, and I had this manuscript. And then I decided to self-publish this manuscript, and I wasn't the selling type. Self-publishing means that you as the person goes out to sell the book yourself. And I might say to you, David, I have this book, would you like to buy it? And you might say yes, or you might say no. However, a lot of the people would say, can I read it first? And I'm thinking, no, you can't read it first. You either buy it or you don't buy it. Or you can't just read it.
Right.
So that's when I thought, well, I can't do this. It's too hard for me. I decided to find the publishing route, and I discovered a person I knew who published their book, and they gave me a contact, and it went from there. And now I have this published book called Teida Story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog.
Okay, now how hard is it to write from the context of a dog? I can write from a human point of view, but to write from a dog's point of view, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, Danielle. Like, how do you even know where to start?
Well, you're with your dog every day, or your pet. So it could be a cat, bird, whatever the animal is. You're with them every day, and you create memories with them. So you might have for example, one thing Teida and I always did was we played ball. She loved playing with any ball, whether it was a tennis ball, whether it was a soccer ball. We'd play in the backyard. And, you could see her smile, or she'd see her catch the ball, or sometimes you'd play soccer where you try and kick the ball along the grass and to stop it getting past. So then it's like a goal. And so you create these little scenarios and describe the scene. So you're just describing a scene like you would do if it was a person. The difference is you're just saying, the dog's smiling. Well, instead of saying the dog is smiling, you say, I'm smiling because you're the dog. So you're just twisting you're changing from first person to the dog's view. And when a dog's, your dog, your pet. So you're saying that's how I picked it up. I thought, I know Teida, she knows me, and you've got this connection with each other. And that's what I wanted to share with my readers and my audience, is that I have a connection with a dog, and it may help you with your connection with your pet as well, or animal.
So we need to know more about this amazing dog in your life. Tell us more about how long you had this dog in your home, how you first got the dog, where the name came from, any of that information. I'd love to know more about this dog.
I can do that. I never thought I'd have a dog. Growing up, I had a phobia of dogs. I actually was about 9 years old, and I was crossing the road with my sister. Just down the bottom of our street is a main road, and we had bought the Sunday paper. I was carrying the Sunday paper, and this big white Alsatian dog came up and bit me on the middle of my thigh as I was crossing the road. And we had dogs in our house growing up, so they were smaller dogs, but nothing big like that. So Alsatian German Shepherd, for those who are not familiar with an Alsatian, it's also known as a German Shepherd. So this dog bit me in the middle of the road, and I walked up, and so I was hesitant. I had to overcome a phobia of dogs before I ended up buying a dog or getting a dog, because I thought, well, how do I do this, because I may not have a small dog at home, like Cocker Spaniel or those sorts of dogs. I'm not talking like Chihuahua dogs, but Cocker Spaniel was the smallest type of dog we had at home. And what happened one day, I'm with an emergency service organisation. I was volunteer with an emergency service organisation called the State Emergency Service. And I had to stay over one night because we had an event the next day. And how I got over this phobia, the people next door have these 2 guard dogs next door. And anybody that walks by, they bark. Anything that someone that goes in the house, they just go off. They bark like anything. Well, I stayed at the headquarters and I was told the alarm's disarmed, don't worry about anything. I was, put in a room, so that's fine. In the middle of, late afternoon, early evening, someone decided to open the door, grab something and leave. So the next day I'm in my white nightie and I decided, you get up and go to the bathroom, all that sort of thing as soon as you wake up. Well, I had this noise outside and I didn't know what the hell the noise was, so I decided to go and investigate this noise. And it was this big loud noise. And I opened the back door and the next thing the back door slammed, so I was stuck in the yard with these steel fences on either side and the vehicle's there in my white nightwear thinking, what the hell do I do? And these dogs are next door and I had to jump the fence. I had to either call a neighbour to say, Charlie, look, I need to call whoever so I can get back inside the building. And I saw a white light. I saw a light there, so I knew someone was home and I heard voices. So I'm screaming out, Charlie, these dogs didn't bark. These dogs just sat there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, somehow I've got to jump a fence. I'm still in this white nightie. I've got, I must look like a total freak or something, like angel or something from heaven jumping over. I don't know. And so I found this crate. I got on the crate, jumped on the fence, and landed in the yard. And then I called out Charlie again, and they came to me. And the dogs didn't bark. They didn't do anything. And so I made the phone call and I got back in. But these dogs, you said later, I was so amazed that the dogs didn't do anything. They didn't bark. They didn't bail you up. They didn't attack you. They did nothing. You were so amazed by these dogs. That's how I overcame this phobia of dogs.
That's one way. Just jump right in the yard and see what happens. So, wow.
I know.
Okay. So then you got your dog?
I got Teida.
After that, was that what happened?
A few years later, Teida came into my life. My house was broken into when I was at work. And the police said to me, get a dog as security. 4 days later, a friend of mine, I had a phone call from a friend, and she said to me, I need to give my dog away. I can't have her anymore. I want to have children. It should be too possessive. So she came over with the dog, and I had no idea how to do a dog. I thought, I don't want to have a dog. I work long hours. It's not fair for the dog if I come home long hours. I leave at 6, come home at 7, 8 p.m. and I'm not there for the dog. Like, I didn't think it was right. And I thought, well, how can I have a dog? Like, I live by myself as well. So I didn't know how to adapt to it. I didn't know what to do. Anyway, I rang my friend, George, who's in the book, and I said, what do I do? And he said, bring her over. So I thought, okay. Goes, you don't have to take the dog, just bring her over. If she doesn't get along with you, you don't get along with her, you don't have to take her. I said, okay. So we brought her over, had this bucket of water sitting on the back deck, and Teida came. Teida's a cross stuffy red cattle dog, and she's a medium-sized dog. She came, went to the bucket of water, had a drink, wandered around, sniffed all these different smells, because dogs use their nose and have a great smell. And she's had all these different smells in the yard that's totally different to where she was. And her owner just sneaked out the back gate and left, and there was Teida and I. And
just
that's
like
how
that.
Teida came into my life. Just like that. And Teida was 6, and I had her for 11 years after that.
Wow.
So her and I just bonded. And Teida was also epileptic, so it wasn't just other dogs. I realised afterwards that she was an epileptic dog, so we had to look after her on that nature. She needed care, and I needed care.
Nice.
So we supported each other.
How long did it take you to build trust with this new dog?
The trust came instantly. She just, there was no time. I had a little bed area in the laundry for her, and she just went straight in there. There was no crying or wanting to come out. And then I thought, okay, I'll open the door, and she just stayed there. She had her own little corner. She just went to different places herself. I didn't say, no, don't go here, don't go there, don't jump on the lounge. She just knew what to do.
See?
It's like, sometimes when you have a flatmate and they just fit into your way of living, you fit into their way of living. It's kind of like that, but it was more than a flatmate.
There you go. So, Danielle, talk us through the book. As you got down to writing this book, you've experienced some loss, some grief in your life. Is this book kind of designed to help people who are also facing that kind of path right now? Is that the main purpose of your book?
The main purpose of my book is to share the bond that Teida and I had as, pet owners and an animal. So it's for animal lovers, pet lovers, people who have suffered grief and loss, because there's a couple of major things that happened to me. My parents were divorced. I was redundant at work, and I had a mortgage to pay on the house. So I was made redundant at work as well. And that happened throughout when I had Teida. And I also had, the loss of a dear friend. And so I was writing this book, and I just thought, well, it was a healing process for me, because I need something to keep myself occupied besides just sitting there. And when you lose somebody, I had to learn that, because I'm very spiritual as well, so I had to learn that it's like air. You breathe air and you feel air, but you don't see it. People don't see it. They don't even know what air looks like. You just feel it, And when someone passes away, I see that. So I may not see them in the physical, like I see you and you see me, but you feel them around you. And the more I learnt about that, the more I could get through my grief. I believe that you never get over grief. You just get through it one day at a time, because someone's, in you. So I was just writing this, and I knew I had to dedicate this book to George. Something told me I had to dedicate it to my friend George. So I just wrote this book, and it was a healing process for me. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, so to speak, because everybody deals with grief differently. But how I deal with grief is that knowing that they're around me, supporting me from the other side, and I talk to them. I like to say, help me get a car spot or whatever, and all of a sudden I get a car spot. Or you might see a rainbow in the sky and you might realise that it's them or something, their favourite song on the radio, things like that. So it opened my spiritual world more, and that helps me through my grief process.
That's good.
And so and it also helps the animals as well, because animals, when George passed away, Teida reacted differently. She was licking her paw, her leg, and someone would say, take her to the doctor, take her to the doctor. And it's like, no, she's screaming. So I just put a bucket over her head and it healed. So I had to look after her. So it took my attention off me, because I had someone else to look after, which was my best friend, which was Teida, So there's things like that help when you're grieving.
Tell us more about your friend George. I would like to know more about this person.
George was a family man. He had, he's got children of his own, so we had a great platonic friendship.
Good.
And he was there for me. He was there for Teida. So he basically was like a mentor to me. And if I was stuck with something, George was there. I never had a car when I first had Teida, and George would come over in his SES station wagon and he'd take Teida to the vet, things like that. So, in a way, I helped George heal because he was at home, his wife was at work, and sometimes it's like, what do I do? So I was like his second daughter, so to speak, in different ways, So we built a bond as well. And he loved Teida, he loved animals. He was renting his place and couldn't have a dog himself, and also because of his medical ailments. So it was like his second dog, a dog without, the responsibility. So, he loved it. George had medical ailments, and one thing, for example, he had migraines and he was diabetic. Teida could tell when his sugar was down. Teida could tell when he's had migraines. I didn't train her. Dogs just know. Yeah. She just knew instantly when things went right with George, with me, with anything. And that's what I wanted to also share with my readers or viewers out there, that your animal can tell when things are not right with you medically. Yeah. And I also can tell when, so for example, a lady's pregnant. Right. They know that before we do.
They understand grief. They understand sadness. Right. All of that. They do. They pick up on everything.
They do. They do. And it's not because, you treat them as a human, you treat them as an animal, you treat them as a dog.
Yeah.
And get respect from them. So if your energy as a person is calm, your dog will be calm. If you're anxious, they will be anxious.
Yep. Yeah. They're amazing creatures. I think we're blessed to have them in our lives. We're blessed to have these amazing animals.
You've got dogs too. You've got dogs too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they just they make you get up and be active and be healthy. They make you go take them for walks. They make you feel peaceful. They do silly things that make you laugh. Like, they're a great companion in life.
And when you say that, when they make you laugh and they make you smile, they're the things you write down. And what you write down, all of a sudden you've got these stories, and that's your book. Yeah. And your book doesn't have to be something that's published. It can be something self-published. It can be something for you. Yeah. It can be something just passed to generations going forward, or to your children, about anything. Mm-hmm. So it could be your past, family recipes, or how you came out to, your country, in my case, Australia, your family, your mum and dad, if they were migrants from another country and they came out, or cultures, or anything. So, a book doesn't have to be 200 pages. It can be like a 20-page little document that you just want to give to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that growing up, it wasn't easy for you, and that you were bullied, and there's some of that. And we wanted to kind of come back to that a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about how does that shape you as an adult when you look back in those early days? How did that impact you today?
Well, I'll just explain to your audience what happened. I went to school and I was bullied at school. I was, for example, I'm of Lebanese heritage, and you bring your food and it's just Lebanese bread wrapped up in Vegemite, which is like a spread, like peanut butter or something like that. And you'd wrap it up and you'd have it, and I'd look at you and say, yeah, what's that? I'm not sitting next to you. And they walk away. And a lot of students who were of cultural backgrounds bought food of their country and got ridiculed. And, well, unlike today, it wouldn't matter what you eat. People would come and say, what's that? And want to have a taste of it. It's totally different. And even I had a younger sister the next year, and I was looking forward to her coming to school, and I'd say to her, oh, what would an older sister, why would the older sister hang out with the younger sister? Go away, leave her alone. So I had nobody to sit with in the playground. And I just felt it was a lonely time during school. And even with anxiety, I was no good. I loved maths was my favourite subject, not English. I failed at English at school with comprehension in particular. Loved writing letters. like now you have the social media as pen pals, but back then you'd write letters to pen pals, you'd write letters. And I loved writing letters. I loved reading. I loved spelling. I was no good at comprehension, and according to the teachers, I was no good at writing essays, creative writing. So I literally, my highest mark was 12 out of 20 for creative writing, and comprehension. I had to get tutoring after school and it was from an 87-year-old nun who, she noticed I was actually needed help with comprehension, and she was my Year 5 primary school teacher 2 years before, and she offered to teach me before and after school. So I basically went to the chapel, which was because we were in a Catholic school, went to the chapel, and then before school for half an hour, she would actually help me with comprehension. And so that would improve it a little bit. However, at the end of the year, I still suffered from anxiety. I got sick before every exam. And so I just didn't like school whatsoever. Today, when you get bullied or made fun of, there's more policies in place. Back when I went to school, there was nothing. Right. There was no teachers in the playground you could talk to. And even when they were there, it's your word against someone else's. So unless they saw the incident, what they're going to do, And even now, you'd have a seat. If you had no one to sit with in the playground, they called it a base seat. And you have a seat there and someone would come up and talk to you or play with you. Back then, you just got to fend for yourself. So there's all these different things that happen at school. And I had no idea, I wanted to do, my favourite subject was maths, so I wanted to do physics and chemistry at school. And the teachers thought I wasn't clever enough to do them. So I couldn't do them at school. So way a year later, I never thought I was going to write a book. I didn't even think about it until after my friend George died. I didn't think about writing a book. And then all of a sudden it just came and I started writing, and now it happens. Yeah. And I have this book that I can share with the whole world.
So when you're writing the book, how are you changing as a person as you write the book? Are you growing? Are you...
Well, I feel like I'm confident. Yeah. Like I want to inspire others that just because someone said you can't do something or you're not capable of doing something, there are ways. If you want to become an astronaut, for example, it might take you longer to get there, but do it. If you feel something in your heart and you want to go for it, just go for it. Don't let others stop you. And there might, for example, you may not want to be. You may want to be in space. There might be other ways to be in space besides being an astronaut. And I'm just using that as an example, not being literal here. So, but just follow your dreams, follow your heart. And it took me 8 years to write a book. It may not take you 8 years to write a book. Yeah. Keep at it, and believe in yourself. It's what I say. Follow your heart. Believe in yourself.
That's great. So, Danielle, when somebody buys your book and they're holding your book for the first time in their hands, they're ready to read it. They haven't started yet. They're going to read today. What is your message to them as a reader? What do you as the author want to say before somebody reads your book for the first time? Do you have a message for them?
I'd like to just say I hope they enjoy it. I hope they get something out of it. I do acknowledge it may not be for everybody, but I hope that just there's one little piece of information that you can take out of it that helps you in your part of the world and helps you with your life.
It's great. And that's the idea of the podcast, Danielle. I want people to meet great authors like you and go, if the book's not for me, I know someone who's going to love this book and I can send it to them. Now that I've heard you talk about the book, I know who this is a perfect book for, myself or someone else in my life. So making that connection is the whole idea behind this podcast. So I love that you're here with us.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Okay, so I have one more question to end off our conversation because I love talking to you, but I want to do that at the end. Before I do that, Danielle, as far as where the book is available and maybe if we have questions, we want to talk to you as the author. I know I have other podcasters who listen to this show and they're looking for great guests like you to come on and they want to know how to reach out to you. Where can we get the book and how do we connect with you, Danielle?
The book is through Amazon, I believe. And there's, I guess if you Google it somewhere, because different parts of the world have the book in different areas. So Amazon is a great place to start. And also my publisher is called New Holland Publishers. So they're not just Australian, they're worldwide. So they may be able to guide you to a place in your part of the world that has Teida's story.
Excellent.
And also there's a thing called Goodreads, and you can actually, a great thing an author likes is a review.
Yes.
So wherever you buy the book, put a little review up, or even if it's just the stars, if you're not comfortable commenting it, if you want to put a star up, put a star up. 5 stars is the highest. So that's
of course we're doing 5 stars. Yes.
I commented even more. So wherever you buy the book, put a review up. Us authors don't even know, we're not even told where the book's available. I Google it. And if, David, you say, the book's available here, I can say, oh, great, and tag that store or tag that online place to say thank you or something, and promote them because I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, Threads.
Good.
So if you search my name, you'll find it somewhere, find me somewhere. And David and I were part of the podcast Facebook group, and that's how we found each other.
Yeah.
So, if there's someone there that wants to interview me, I'm happy to do another one somewhere in a different part of the world or even in Canada.
Good.
Anywhere.
There you go. You can travel the world and talk about your book.
I can travel the world just on my own lounge chair, so it's great. It doesn't matter what time zone it is.
Yeah, it's just the time of day. We have to make sure that we're both awake. Yeah. So the one thing, too, then, we'll make sure we have all the links for all this information with the podcast. So people listening to us talk right now, they can click the links. We'll make sure we have everything there for them so they can connect with you, Danielle. So my last question before I let you go is, the name of my show is Living the Next Chapter. So I'm kind of using the title of my show as my next question. My last question, how are you, Danielle, living your next chapter? What's next for you? Where are you headed? Can you give us some idea now that you have this book out in the world? What's next?
Well, this is my first, Teida Story is my first published book. And my next chapter, so to speak, is to write more books and publish them for the world to see. It may be a different genre. I'm predominantly a non-fiction author, a memoir writer. However, if I'm writing another book at the moment, which is a lot deeper to the heart, so to speak, and I'm thinking of writing more. So that's my next fiction. My next chapter is to write more, get out there more, get the world to know me more. So that's what I'd like to do. That's what I'm aiming to do.
So can I give you an idea for a book? Okay.
Sure.
Now, you said that you were nervous around dogs when you were young because of what happened to you. But a dog, you didn't let that keep you from having a beautiful dog in your life that changed everything for you and became your best friend. Could you do a children's version of your book that talks about the dog, and so that kids can read that and not be afraid of dogs and realize that dogs love people? And maybe a children's book. What do you think?
Most definitely. That would be a great idea, David. I'd like that.
With nice pictures and stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be fun. Just to let you know with the book, the audience of the book, even though there's probably say 10 years and up, 10 years old and up, give or take, stage 2 primary school, maybe. So just to let you know, because some people thought it was a children's book, like the school would have it as the children's book, and then the kids would say, oh, it's too long for me, or I didn't like the idea of having it as a dog, or, grief and loss. They might not have gone through grief and loss, for example, at a young age. So there is a bit of light and shade, heavy and darkness. There's, Teida's telling it from her good times, bad times, happy times, sad times. There are moments where you laugh and there's moments where you cry. And so I just don't want a child to think, oh, my gosh, this is too heavy. So
maybe a children's version of that book that brings out some of those things to help the kids. But I know that kids love pets. They love seeing dogs. They giggle, they smile when a dog comes by.
I do.
So maybe a book for kids might be an idea for you down the road. Just to put it out there, just to give you an idea.
No, I appreciate that, David. Thank you.
Excellent. Danielle, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for joining me from across the world. I'm so excited that we can do this and have a great conversation between two people on two different parts of the world at the same time. It's amazing what we can do.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I love having you on the
so much,
podcast.
David.
It's so good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your show.
Excellent. Do more of this. You're a great guest. Everyone needs to have you on their show. And I love having you on my podcast. Thank you for making time for me.
Thank you, David. It's my pleasure.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information, as always, in the show notes for Danielle. Go buy the book. Give a book to your friends and family. And leave a great review as well. Let everybody know how awesome this book is. Let's support our authors. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun. Well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.